Hey everybody, let's talk about the full moon in Leo, which is coming up in about a day and a half, around about there. I'm going to just talk about probably four different things that I think are really connected to this full moon in Leo, and it does include Venus, of course, and it also includes Uranus. So let's just go straight to the chart. Hope you're all doing well, by the way. This 2025 has started off with a bit of a bang, I think, for a lot of people, largely due to Mars retrograde in Cancer. I think that's been quite a challenging cycle for many people. I knew it would be. Just to touch on that quickly, Mars in Cancer is not the favorite position. Retrograde is not a bad thing, but it is a difficult thing, especially with a planet like Mars. And Mars, of course, was opposite Pluto. So, anyway, you all know the drill. We've been over it several times. So basically, there's the full moon there at 24 degrees of Leo. And of course, this cycle began um, at the new moon in Aquarius. And obviously, the most important thing to always note is where did the cycle begin relative to your own birth chart. Um, and look, not every lunation cycle, especially if it's not an eclipse, is necessarily going to be, a game changer or a life changer. But certainly um, it can help us begin certain things, at the start of the cycle. And then when we get to the middle, which is where we are now, the full moon, we can actually perhaps just gain a greater sense of insight if we're lucky, um, and just have a clearer picture on some of the things that are actually going on in our life. Because it's actually other things going on in the sky relative to our birth chart that would, really point to very significant transitions, turning points, and so forth. So it's always important to consider everything. It's not just a full moon in Leo. We've still got Mars in Cancer retrograde. We've got Venus who's just entered into Aries. This full moon is actually square Uranus. There's Uranus there, squaring the sun and the moon. So it's a T square. So basically, a full moon in Leo with Uranus squaring it means that this full moon has to channel, if you like, the energy of Uranus. And, square aspects are very dynamic. They can be very, very challenging, but they can also bring about the change that you might need, or just that break that you might need. And breakthroughs and breaking point are really good words for Uranus as well. Of course, with Uranus, there can be very sudden and unexpected turn of events. So I guess the first thing again is to look at, well, where did the cycle begin for you? It was at around about, I think it was 9, 10, 11 degrees of Aquarius. I remember that because it was right on my moon. So the seed, the planting of the seed, which was conjunct Pluto, had very much to do with our relative to this lunation cycle and it being sort of the Chinese New Year and things like that. It's our path forward from the point of view of the archetype of Aquarius, which is think about Aquarius, 11th house, ruled by Uranus and Saturn as well. So there's a Saturn Uranus flavor when we are talking about Aquarius always. So it would have had to do with perhaps severing certain circles or certain friendships or certain maybe because the 11th house in Aquarius also corresponds to our dreams and our wishes. And it's the house of the guardian daemon as well. I know we're sort of dipping into houses, but Aquarius is connected to that too. So I think with Pluto being there, there would have been definitely some type of ending of some kind with certain types of friendships or relationships, or giving birth to new ones, new circle of friends, new friendships, or maybe even just totally new dreams and wishes. And here we are at the midpoint with now the moon in Leo. So I guess it's kind of pointing us to, okay, what was seeded at the beginning of this cycle, and now we need to really step into our heart center, Leo, and be really heartfelt about the choices that we've made. You know, the Leo full moon is just going to shine those elements in our heart, whether they are satisfied or otherwise. It's just going to shine what's there, and it is about helping us step much closer to just to feeling more heartfelt, about the matters that we are dealing with, connected with, associating to, things like that. But here's the really interesting thing, I think, that's probably the most interesting out of everything relative to this full moon, is that the degrees that it's at is pretty close to the last Venus retrograde cycle, which was a Leo Venus star point. So it was the last time Venus was retrograde back in 2023, and it was her rebirth as a Leo morning star. And so at the moment, now that Venus has entered into Aries, which is the sign she's going to be reborn as a morning star, we're basically finishing that cycle that began in 2023 relative to the morning star, which is Pallas Athena, which is the goddess of war, which is the goddess of wisdom, which is the goddess of strategy, which is the goddess of the earth. She gets things done on the earth. This is a cycle that's coming to a close from 2023. And that Leo Venus star point, it was about 20 degrees of Leo. So you can see this full moon is 24 degrees. So it's pretty close to that Venus star point from 2023. And I think the reason it brings it in is A, because it's very close to the same degree that Venus had her retrograde cycle in and ended up being the Leo Venus star point. Now she's in Aries, another fire sign, and she's basically planting the seeds. Like she's finishing that Leo cycle, clearing out what needs to be cleared out. And furthermore, actually, perhaps what might come up during this time as well, some of the themes that might have been activated for us in 2023 when the Leo Venus star point was activated on the wheel as a Venus morning star, which is Venus's retrograde cycle. Some of those themes, or one of those themes, might just pop up again, and it might just be an opportunity to, to address it. Yeah, to address it, to clear your heart about that issue, whatever it was, if it was an issue indeed. So Venus now in Aries, planting the seeds, preparing to, by the beginning of March, thereabouts, she's going to go retrograde. And and I've mentioned this already, and I think in a couple of different videos, she's going to come back to Neptune, she's going to come back to the North Node, and then she's going to be, reborn as the Aries morning star, which I'm going to, yes, do a separate video for that. So I don't want to go into that too much, but I just think it's important to think about this full moon as part of Venus's cycle when she was the Leo morning star back in 2023, and how this might just illuminate certain things that you can clear up and release in your own heart. And also in the mix here, we still have, Mars is still very close to squaring Chiron. It's only a couple of degrees away. So that's still in the mix. And I've spoken about that. I think I did a live stream on that one, and said a few things that I needed to kind of get off my chest, simply because the way I feel with my work and when I'm speaking to things, um, of course, I try to maintain an objective and professional and detached perspective on things when I'm discussing them. But I'm human just like you. So naturally, things come up for me as well. And there are some things that just need to be verbalized and some things that just need to be aired out. And so I chose to do that without, pointing to the exact name and names of individuals, but that was just something that was important for me because I know many people can relate to that. And the essence of that was the feeling of having been invaded by a vampire for about 3 years. So that was that theme. And the Chiron scoring Mars, I think, really just stirred that up inside me. So I spoke a little bit about that. But my point is that this is still in play, so it's quite a volatile energy still. Um, so I guess it's something to keep in mind because we know with the full moon, for better or for worse, will always just shine the spotlight on whatever's there. Now, whatever's there is there. It can be, it can be high, it can be low, it can be good, it can be bad, just to use very simple language. It doesn't matter what it is. The full moon is literally a spotlight. That's why when you look at the full moon in the sky, it just, lights up the whole sky, doesn't it? So we just translate that relative to ourself, our life circumstances, and also where that full moon might be happening in our birth chart. For me, for instance, it happens in my seventh house. So that could just, be pointing to certain individuals that I may have partnerships with and whatever the case may be. Just, just speaking to that generally, because you too might have the full moon in the seventh house. If you've got the full moon in the seventh house, you really do need to read the full moon as it correlating to putting the spotlight on the seventh house. Likewise, if it was in the first house, it would put the spotlight in the first house, which is yourself, right? If it was in the fourth house, it's your family, so on and so forth. It's really, really important to read the energy relative to your own birth chart in order to be able to personalize it and draw the connections and the links that are coming up. So the new moon in Aquarius, for me, for instance, was in my first house. So it was a brand new beginning for myself in terms of perhaps what I wanted to completely completely transform relative to groups or friends or associations or things that I may have been thinking about that I wanted to create in my life. There's been some change there for me, and there has. And it's been a really intense cycle so far because it's brought up some past things. I've got Pluto right on my ascendant. So Pluto's been in my 12th house, for the last 15 years or so, right? So when you have that type of experience, it's not unusual for when Pluto coming to your ascendant that it's going to dust off the remaining cockroaches, as I like to call them, vampires and cockroaches, same thing. You got to disinfect them basically. Um, Look, that may sound a bit harsh, but at the same time, you know, life is not just about being nice all the time. Sometimes we just have to get the Pallas Athena's sword. We have to get that out. We have to use the wisdom with that sword and just cut through the things that are contaminating our field. And I think this full moon really speaks to that as well because it shines what's really in our heart and what we need to be true to our heart, to really be true to our heart, to really be authentic. Aquarius is about authenticity, right? Your own individuality and authenticity. And Leo is about being true to your heart. And Venus in Aries, look, she's not a it's in terms of traditional Hellenistic astrology, let's say, Venus in Aries is in her detriment. So it's not considered one of the greatest places for Venus. And that can be quite challenging for Venus in Aries. But I think perhaps the challenging things to maybe watch for is the impulses that come up, right? Now, sometimes certain impulses can actually lead us to a different path or a courageous decision that we otherwise couldn't have made, and that can be to our advantage, right? On the other hand, it can be Venus in Aries can be just very self-absorbed and very much about just what she wants, and that's it. And that's why Venus in Aries is in her detriment, because Venus essentially being connected to Libra has this side to her where she must consider others. She has to create some sort of balance. And of course, Venus in Aries has a polarity, which is Libra. So at best, Venus in Aries in this part of the cycle here is probably very much connected to the warrior, the courageous one, to step into the heart center Leo, right? Being really authentic and true to what's in your heart moving forward, and just having the courage to face it, actually, having the courage to sever it if it needs to be severed, having the courage to disinfect it if you need to disinfect it. Or it could just be building more confidence in yourself, as a Venus type of thing. Look, Venus, especially for women, is a woman's how a woman feels about herself on every single level relative to her beauty, her sensuality, her ability to attract what she wants, what she desires, and so forth. So I think at a healthier level, Venus in Aries can really encourage us with self-confidence, right? So that's a good thing. But she's not quite there yet because she hasn't begun her retrograde cycle. She's just starting to sort of plant the seeds with Venus in Aries. Um, and she's got quite a long journey. She's going to be in Aries until June. She's going to dip back into Pisces and then go back into Aries. But from the time she enters Aries until the time she leaves Aries, she entered Aries early in February, just a few days ago. And she doesn't actually leave Aries until June this year. So that's quite a few months, right? That's a very, very, it's a powerful opportunity for us to really um, to find that confidence in ourselves, about ourselves, and who we are and who we are becoming. Aries. And the moon in Leo, in this case here, is just going to put the spotlight on the end of the cycle, Venus's cycle that began in 2023. Venus in Leo, retrograde cycle, Venus star point in Leo, Venus morning star. So this degree of the moon, as I said before, is basically very close to the degree of that Venus star point. So this is all part and parcel. Um, and look, once again, the square to Uranus, that's not necessarily easy, but the thing that I love about Uranus is that it can bring through some shock waves, but on the other hand, it can bring through uh, the ability to liberate ourselves from whatever it is we need to liberate from. That can be, a mental attitude, an emotional attitude. It could be a connection to somebody,. Um, Uranus always promotes that desire to free ourselves from anything that is inauthentic, that's creating a sense of feeling stagnant, with something in our life and so forth. So look, overall, I mean, Moon in Leo, just Moon in Leo on its own is a lot of fun, actually. You can have a lot of fun with this energy, especially from a creative perspective. And if we were to just look at that, just the moon in Leo, that would just be like having a lot of fun and playing and being creative and dancing and dressing up and whatever, all that sort of Leo stuff, right? Which is fantastic. But we can never look at the full moon in isolation. It has a square to Uranus. Venus is in the picture here because she's basically ending her Leo cycle, which started in 2023, which is, as I said, this a very close degree to this full moon, and there's a square there from Uranus. And the Mars square Chiron, which still has a very volatile frequency, lying in some cases dormant, in some cases it'll be quite avert. It just depends on our personal circumstances. So that's really all I wanted to share for today. It's really super hot here today, and yeah, I'm just going to go and have a break and get some fresh air. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know how you're feeling. I'm really interested in people who have Pluto on their ascendant. Love to hear from any of you who are experiencing that. And also, if you can relate to this Venus in Aries at the moment, um, relative to, this, she's seeding this new cycle. And so, because she's coming to a culmination of the end of her previous retrograde cycle, there might just be some themes. It could just be memories of things that happened, that were activated at that time that, re-emerge simply so that you can dust it off, right? And be done with it. Because this Venus in Aries star point is a brand new 8-year cycle. And once again, I'll come back to speak to that on its own very, very soon. I'll see you guys soon. Sending you all so much love. I hope that you are doing well, and I hope that no matter what, that you have the courage just to be yourself. Um, Somebody asked the question, how do you deal with vampires, psychic vampires, or things like that? And it's very difficult to answer that question because it just depends on your circumstances. There are a myriad of things that you could do, though, lots and lots and lots of things. But I think probably if it's somebody you know at least that may not be in your life anymore, maybe somebody you've had an experience with. The most obvious thing is to just simply sever, all ties, all connections, and that would include, maybe having some kind of cleansing ceremony to completely remove everything that was associated with that particular individual. There's lots of things you can do, though, lots and lots of things. The biggest thing is to release it from inside you, to let it go from inside you. And that can be very, very difficult for a lot of different reasons. Like I said in my live, when um, if somebody causes you tremendous pain of some kind, uh, we're not robots, right? We're humans. We have a heart, and we have a memory. We have a long-term memory. We have a short-term memory. Our body remembers everything. There's this whole somatic experience. Something could have happened to you when you were 5 years old, and that's still retained within us. So this quest of healing our pains and our grievances or whatever it may be, I think it's just a work in progress, and it really does primarily come back to how we deal with it within ourselves, because it doesn't matter what the other person is doing or not doing, is saying or not saying. Um, that they could be trying to trash you. They could be doing whatever, right? There's unfortunately, um, the dark spirits that circle the ether. There's so many of them, and when a person is influenced by substances, and this is a fact, or when a person is feeling really vulnerable, um, really sad, really depressed, really upset, those sorts of states, which are just human experiences, that's when these darker demonic forces attack, because that's when they can actually take your energy, right? And so it is a bit of a battle, because you can't constantly be on this high. Life is not made like that. So we just have to learn to deal with both the highs and the lows, and protect ourselves as much as we can, and disinfect whatever needs to be disinfected. See you soon.